I'm excited for today. I'm going to spill the beans on something that I haven't talked about yet, but I'm going to be starting to talk about it quite a bit. So I have been thinking about writing my fifth book about building high access, high influence relationships for probably a few years. And it has been on our calendar, and Kathy and I talk about it, and we get all hot and bothered about it every once in a while, and then it just never happens. So I am very, very pleased to let you guys know that I am working with Jamie to put the Hoosier Oprah book out there into the world. And I can tell you that my experience a few meetings in has been absolutely unbelievable. Like, she's so darn good at what she does. So writing a book, as somebody who's put 4 out already, they're not easy. And having the guidance of somebody like Jamie is like just an absolute game changer. So I'm excited for today. So Jamie, what do you got for us?
Well, I'm so stoked about the project, Scott. It's amazing already. So you are so kind for all those gracious words. And yeah, I'm excited to get started today. And I'm excited. I see so many faces that I've gotten to meet and so many new faces that I'm excited to meet. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm a nonfiction business and leadership book ghostwriter. I focus in that area because I used to work in finance and accounting, which is my outlier claim to fame. So here we are. Yeah, I know that some people on the call here have written books before. I know that some people haven't written books before. So hopefully we're going to find ways that everybody gets some value out of this. And I want it to be interactive as well. So we'll kind of flip off of the interactive and presentation style mode. So we're going to talk about why books are important, how they're beneficial. We're going to spend most of the time talking about laying the foundation for your book, because so many people get so excited to write a book and then they go either right into the writing or the outline, and then it's a total bummer if you get through your entire book and then it doesn't really serve the purpose that you wanted it to serve at the end. So we're going to talk intention setting, because that is important in any venture, in my opinion. And then I'll try to save some time at the end to talk about what the ghostwriting process looks like. Every ghostwriter is a little bit different, but for those who are curious, like, not everybody knows how it works. So we'll try to just kind of briefly cover that at the end, because hopefully by the end you're super fired up to write your book and you know where you want to go with it. And then if you don't have the time, you might need a partner. So first, let's talk about why writing a book is important. So we'll go kind of quickly through this. I think a lot of people have an awareness of this at this point. But let's first start with gaining trust is one big thing that comes out of it. And then related to that is building credibility and authority. So building trust, when someone reads your book, they get to know you, they get to know the essence of you. They see your story, they see your hard-won experiences and your insights and all of that. And sure, they can get to know that through social media, but to do that, they're getting bite-sized chunks at a time, and they really have to pay attention and follow your story all the way through. Whereas a book, they get to have it all at once. And so it's a great way to build trust, because they get to know you without you sitting in the room, which also then helps with credibility and authority, because if you can fill 200 pages with something that you know and your experiences, and you're not repeating the same thing 7 times, but it's actually a solid book, then people know that you know your stuff. And so that's like automatic credibility right there and authority building. And then on top of that, you get the chance to like organically brag. So it's a way for you to talk about how you help people, how you serve your clients, the really cool things that you've done. And you're not doing it being like, look at all the things that I've done. You're doing it like, hey, here's something that I want to teach you. And here's why I want to teach you, because I helped this person with this. And like, it's just a really good way to share examples. But it builds credibility, because people know that you don't just know what you're talking about, but that you can actually like walk the walk as well, which is really cool. So then that leads into a lot of people want to write a book, especially these days, to generate leads. Books, especially in the business and leadership space, are becoming like a business card, is how everybody's referring to them. I don't know who coined that term, but it's a great term. So people trust you, you have credibility, they see the work that you do, they understand your systems and your frameworks and all of that. And so it's a fantastic way to generate leads. And not just leads, but like qualified leads. So like CCR mentioned the other day, the difference between people being in the deciding phase and the decided phase. Hopefully they're coming to you decided because they know they like you, they know your system, and they're ready to rock and roll instead of spending so much time with tire kickers, which, you know, you might meet some nice people, but it's not putting money in the bank. And then relatedly, that's scaling your message, right? So people get to know you and all of this stuff. You don't have to be in the room with them. So someone reads your book, they love your book, they pass it on to another person, and the ripple effects of books is just like crazy. So you don't have to physically sit there and tell your story and teach. Your story, your experiences make it outside of a boardroom or outside of a presentation or whatever the case may be, and they live on. So that's a really important way to scale and then also generate more leads. And then it opens up other new opportunities as well. So not just lead generation. Another really common reason people want to write books is to gather more speaking opportunities. And Alea Harris is on the call, so she will attest to that. And books and speaking go hand in hand. So books are a great way to build credibility, to get more speaking gigs. And then you bring your book and then you give it away. And then more people read your book and then they pass it to more people. And then more people want you to speak. And it's just this beautiful cycle that keeps feeding on itself. But there's other ways to open up opportunities as well. Podcasts, that's speaking adjacent. But the more people get to know you, the more random opportunities that you may not even know existed might come your way as well. And then the last thing I'll talk about is relationship building. This is not something that I used to talk about, but one, for this group, everybody here loves building relationships. And two, I've seen it through experience. So I recently had an author I worked with that named me on the cover with him. So I got to go through the whole like publishing, launch, all of that process. And it was really cool to see the relationship building aspect of that. So one, when you do a book launch, people are stoked for you. Like people know that books are hard. It takes a long time to put the manuscript together, to go through the publishing process, to do all the promoting. They are going to cheer you on. It's not like a typical business launch. Like they're going to be stoked for you. So you get the chance to rekindle relationships that maybe you haven't stoked for a while. And you can reach out to people as well with something new and exciting. And then also like after that, it's not just about the book launch. You can send it to people. So even Bob's book, I send to people because we do book exchanges, or maybe they're interested in employee ownership or whatever the case may be. And it's a fun way to go about doing that. So leverage the book as well in that way. I will say what a book is not is a quick cash grab. So I tell every person that works with or that even gets on a discovery call, you are looking to write a book and put it on Amazon and expect money to just be flowing into your bank account from book sales. That is not the reason to write a book. You will get your ROI if you leverage your book in the right way, but it's going to come from lead generation, speaking opportunities, things like that. Like you use it as a tool, not as passive income. So like I said, I want to keep this interactive. So for anybody that has a book, I'm curious if you have other benefits that you'd like to share with the group that maybe we haven't talked about. Alea?
Jamie, I'm just so stoked to be on the call with you because I love you dearly. Side note, when my book came out, Jamie and I met through LinkedIn. And when my book came out, she was one of the first people that pre-read it. She was the only person that sent me flowers when my book came out. She's a true, wonderful, wonderful friend and very good at what she does. Another thing that I do with my book is I use it for onboarding my clients. And I write, a special note in there, autograph it. I have like coordinated stationery I send them, and it's part of their welcome kit. And when I was first doing it, I was like, this feels really self-serving. But people love it. They love getting the book. They love getting something physical in the mail. And connects in, because all of the work I do is virtual. So there's something about having my words in paper in their hands that makes me feel like an actual human being, not just like another virtual bunch of pixels on the screen. And these are their words, not mine. So I have found in the relationship building track that my clients find deeper relationships more quickly when they have received my book in the mail after they've already spent money with me.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I have seen that before actually too. And it's a way for people to get to know you as more than just a speaking coach, because you tell a lot of great personal stories in your book as well. And so they get to know the whole amazing essence of Alea before they even start with you. I love it. Scott,
Scott. No, okay, Scott, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to pile on to Alea. Alea, both you and Scott have used your books as an onboarding tool, and it's like the feeling is fantastic. It's such a little thing to do, but the impact is huge, and it got me ready to go through your course and get ready to go on that journey. And I'm still going into Scott's book and your book and others that are in the Outlier project that have used those tools before. So I think that's a huge one that I think a lot of people miss the mark on.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. And Alea's book is, if you guys haven't checked it out, check it out. It is literally like a step-by-step. She dumps all of her knowledge of getting on stage into it.
Al, can I say? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know who was next. Okay, I'm number 2. I'm not looking correctly.
You're all good. We'll do Ella, then we'll do Rich, and then we'll talk intention setting.
Yeah, everything Alea said for sure. I send all my books out to my clients. Like, even if they're not a parent, they get my parenting book. And then we get to talk about that and talk about how you get to reparent yourself. And so it doesn't matter like where they are. I send all of it to them. But also that idea of it being a business card, like for podcasts, that's been really helpful to me. And it's curious to me, like a woman bought my parenting book and then she's a corporate wellness person and she hires me to do a job in Manhattan with an engineering firm. So you don't know how you're going to touch people with a book. But one of my first mentors, Robert Allen, the best-selling author, he's like, your book is your business card. And when I joined his mentorship program, I got a box of every one of his books. It was the coolest thing. So yeah, great to see you too, Jamie.
That's awesome. Yeah, you never know where it'll take you. And people get worried to write a book because they think people have talked about the topic before, but your book is always going to be unique because it's going to be your point of view and your experiences and through that lens, which might touch someone in a different way than someone else who's already talked about it. Rich, let's hear it.
One of the things I learned from the Who's Your Oprah course, thanks to that I've been doing is I'm in a compilation book. That's my first start. I want to write my own book someday. And what I decided to do, one of the markets I work with is high school students. And when they're done with me, I send them a sweatshirt from the school they decided to go to. And in the box, I put that book in and I say, give it to your parents and then pass it on to someone that could also use my services. Because that's a way for them to just pass on word of mouth. Because a lot of people say to me, I'm not going to tell people about you until my kid gets into college. I don't want to tell the grade, but the grade below, I'm happy to do it, once. So of course that says, okay, whatever, but that's what I do with the book now.
Yeah, I love that. I love that it's kind of like a parting gift, right? And then a way, like, I like encouraging people to pass it on as well and share the wisdom. Very cool. All right. So now we're all fired up about our books. So let's talk about intention setting. So like I said, I know we've had a few more people trickle on here. I think this is one of the most overlooked parts of the book writing process. But I think it is like one of the single most important things that you can do before writing a book. Because like I said, you don't want to spend hundreds of hours writing a book, publishing, doing all of that, and then realizing it doesn't actually serve the purpose that you had originally intended. And so there's 3 main areas to cover when intention setting. One is goals, one is your audience, and then one is your content. And so we're going to start by talking about goals, because I think the two most important questions you can ask yourself is, what are your goals for the book, and how do you want to leverage the book? So related but different. What are your goals for the book is basically your why. And so this is often two-pronged, and I see in the folks that I work with. One is typically impact-wise. They want to help people do XYZ or inspire people to, whatever. And then also use it as a business card or use it to increase speaking opportunities. And so that is really what your why is. It informs the entire process. It is what grounds you throughout the process, so that when you're writing your book and then you're like, well, maybe I want to include this story or this or whatever, is it serving your why? That's the question to ask throughout the process, so that you don't lose focus and go on, I call them side quests. We don't want side quests in the book because it confuses people. So ground everything in the why. How you want to leverage your book is also really important. So we just talked about several great ways to do that. Are you going to send it to clients during onboarding? Are you going to use it as a lead generator? Are you going to take it to conferences? Thinking about how you're going to leverage it is important, because if you're using your book for lead generation, we do not want to have sales throughout the entire book, or really at all. We're doing it subtly. We're subtly directing them to why you're so great to work with and different ways that they can engage with you, putting lead generators throughout the book, like, hey, here's a helpful template. Go ahead and download it from my website, things like that. But we can't do that as effectively if we don't know at the outset how we're going to use our book. And so we want to be subtle and supportive in the CTAs, not in your face. And the way to do that is to know how we actually want to leverage it before we start. So that's your goals. Once we have the goals set, then we can start to talk about audience, because you don't know who your audience is if you don't know what you want to do with your book. So if you are wanting to generate leads, there's a good chance that your audience is going to be your ideal clients. If you're trying to help someone avoid the problems that you went through when you were setting up your business or something, your audience might be a prior version of you that you are trying to, reach. And so we don't want to think about this as necessarily like an ICP exercise. That's fine. It's a good start. But we want to think about one person that we're writing to. And I think people are usually like, well, but more than one person's going to read my book. Yes, definitely. But we want to think about this person because as you're writing the book, you want it to feel conversational. If you're writing to a group, it tends to feel preachy, and nobody wants to be preached at. And I know that everybody here certainly doesn't want to be preaching at people either. So when you think about one person, it makes it feel like you're writing to that person, and it makes it feel like you're sitting on a couch with someone, like having a cup of coffee and talking about these things, which is much more inviting and inspiring. And so sometimes people struggle to think of like who that one person is. So some ways that you can look at it are like a great client that you have right now, where you're like, if I had 10 more of these clients, I would be so happy. Like, let's write to that person. Or an ideal client that you haven't scored yet, but that you would love to have, or a prior version of yourself, or someone you're mentoring. Like, there's tons of different ways, but it's just thinking of that one person that if they received this book, it would be life-changing for them. Because if you can write it to them, then it's going to find other people who it's going to change their life as well. And it's going to be written in a way that they feel very relatable and that it resonates. And then once we know this reader, we can think about what they want. So sometimes, depending on the nature of the book, sometimes your audience is going to know that they have a problem and they are looking to solve this problem. Sometimes they will not know that they have a problem, but they're just looking to level up. And so it's thinking about it from that lens of like, what do they want and what sort of language are they going to respond to that's going to make them want to pick up this book, because that's step one, right? We need them to buy the book and pick up the book, and then we need them to stay engaged throughout the book. And then we also want to think about how we want them to feel while they're reading it, because the name of the game is engagement, folks. Like, It's great if they buy it. We need to keep them engaged because that's how you're going to make your impact, and ultimately also how they're going to stay engaged with you after they finish reading. So tone is really important. If you want them to feel inspired, like that's going to change how you talk. If you want them to feel motivated, if you want them to feel seen and feel heard, and these are subtle differences that are going to help your message land with the folks that are reading it. And then Alea inspired this question, so I'll give a shout out to her. What happens if they take action, and what happens if they stay stuck? Because reading a book, people often want to feel the transformation, and these two questions help you get at that transformation, which you can also talk about throughout the book so they know what is possible for them. Because if they don't know what's possible for them, they won't be as likely to take those steps at the end of the book to help create change for themselves, which then leads us into what do you actually want them to do when they finish reading the book? This is typically two-pronged. So one, like we all want to make an impact, right? So aside from your ecosystem, what action do you want them to take? Like make it one small bite-sized thing that they can do or start today or this week that will help them make a difference in their lives. Because people can get overwhelmed after reading an entire book and being like, okay, that's great, but now what do I do? So give them a place that they can start. But then also give them a way to stay engaged with you. This could be directing them to your socials so that they follow you and stay in your ecosystem. That's starting pretty high up the funnel. We usually like to end with a QR code or something to be like, hey, here's a resource that you can use to get started, or here's a template or something like that. It's an easy, free way that they can engage with you. You can get them in their list, get them in your list, things like that. And so then they stay in your ecosystem and you get to continue to build more trust. I'll just take a couple seconds for questions here. So certain techniques that help people stay engaged as they are reading. Yes, so that's a great segue. We're going to talk about that in the content section a little bit. And is it better to have one action item at the end or multiple? So I recommend having, I'll call it 1.5. So you're going to encourage them to take the small bite-sized step that you want them to take to actually make a change and an impact in their lives. But the other part of that is you want to be the one that's helping them, right? So let's say it's a book about a workout program or something. So here's one part of the program that you can start implementing today. And here's a resource that you can use, a free resource that you can use to help you start. And so it's kind of that one action item rolled into how they can help themselves and how you are fulfilling kind of your purpose for why you wrote the book all in one. You don't want to overwhelm them with too many different things because then they might not know how to take it. The rule in copywriting is keep it simple. And so you want to keep it simple so that they don't have to think too hard about what they're going to do next. What you can do if you're like, well, I want them to download my freebie, but I also want to get speaking gigs or I want them to visit my website or whatever. Another page that you can have after that is like ways to continue on with the author or something like that. And so you can put like an email in there for speaking opportunities or your website or different resources. And so you make it very clear exactly what that you want them to do next. And then you give them a chance, if they've done that, to further engage with you in different ways. So it's kind of a semantics thing, but it makes a big difference. All right, so then we'll get into content. And so this is we're not full outlining yet, but once you have your goals and the audience, it naturally makes sense to talk about content so you can find the full picture of your book. Because so many times when people come to me, they are in one of two camps. They're like, I really want to write a book. And I don't know, though, if I can't really see it. I don't know if I have enough to talk about. I don't really know if it can come to life. Or they're in the other camp of, I really want to write a book. I have so many things to talk about, and I don't even know where to start with putting it all down and getting it in one spot. And so this whole exercise kind of helps focus, right? It focuses on our goals, our audience, then it naturally makes sense to focus on the content after that. And so we want to think about, what do you want your reader to learn from the book? This is particularly helpful in focusing because you want to think about like 1 or 2 key messages that you want to get across. This is not a buffet. You want to have one single or another related message that you're trying to get across in the book, because if you try to talk about too many things at once, your reader is going to be confused. They're probably going to get frustrated. That is when they will disengage, and because they don't really know what they're getting out of the book if there's too much going on. And so this is your friendly reminder that while people don't want to hear it often, there is more than one book. You don't have to cram all of your knowledge and stories and experiences into one book. It can be spread across multiple books. And as you're going through the first book, you might be like, that's a lot, but just trust me, you will recover and it can go into multiple books after that. So focusing on one message of what you want the reader to learn. And then a couple of questions to kind of get the juices going on layers beneath that is, what do you want to make easier for them? And what are you tired of watching people get wrong? That's another Elias inspired question from when she helped me develop my talk. So those are kind of relates to the topic we talked about before of, do they know they have a problem, or are they just looking to up level? And so that's kind of how you can think about how you want to make things easier for them. And they might not even know that they keep getting something wrong. Like the workout program example, again, like, I don't know, maybe they think that they need to work out for 3 hours a day, every single day to live a healthy lifestyle. And you're like, nah, man, like that's not necessary. Here, try my program because of this. So that's kind of the content that we want to start to get to. And then the biggest thing that we want to do to keep readers engaged is overcome objections. That is the name of the game throughout the book, as we are overcoming objections. Because you might be like, my program is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And that's fantastic. But someone else might read your book and be like, I've tried workout programs before. They don't work for me because of XYZ. And so we want to get ahead of, this doesn't work for me because. We want to get ahead of all of those thoughts that might be going through your reader's head, which is why it's really important that we're very specific about who's reading. Because if you don't do that, that's when the reader will disengage. They might finish the book, but they won't take the action at the end because they'll be like, well, this doesn't apply to me. Oftentimes, if you don't address the objections, they won't even finish the book because it's like, well, I have better things to do with my time, and this is not going to help me because I don't feel like it applies to me. And so that's how we keep readers engaged, is really making them feel seen throughout the process. A big part of that is overcoming objections, and then, just generally letting them know that you relate to them. The other engagement thing is your intro and your conclusion. So just like from a tactical perspective, this isn't necessarily part of intention setting, but from a tactical perspective, your intro and your conclusion are the 2 single most important chapters of your book. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody, but it is just, that's a reminder. And so I write those last. The conclusion, naturally, you know that. But the intro is actually my last thing that I write, because that is what hooks the reader and gets them engaged. If you don't engage them in the first few pages, some people will power through, some people will not. And it frames the entire book experience for them. And so the intro is important in getting people hooked and engaged. The conclusion is really important in, if this is where you want to double down on like the inspiration, the motivation, the whatever, because you want them to take the action that you're putting at the end of your book. So those are 2 really big, important engagement pieces as well. But yeah, so when you put all this together, you have your goals, you have your audience, you have your content, you should be able to see like the thread. You should be able to see the theme that is going throughout. And that is when you can then start to move into deeper parts of the process, the outlining. Some people are opposed to outlining. That's also really important. You don't need to be married to your outline. So once you have this, you can start outlining, you can start writing, you can do all of that. But this is something like, put it on your desk, hang it up in your office. This is the grounding point of making sure that you don't, start to lose focus on your book. It's going to help inspire different ideas for you, but also help like, that's a fine idea, but maybe it's better for a post or a blog or a future book. Like, that's the other thing to remember, is that if you have a piece of content that doesn't fit in with your why for your book, it doesn't mean that it's wasted. Save it, use it in a different way, because it's still great knowledge. It just might not be great for this particular book. So that's kind of the intention setting process. I will pause and take questions, thoughts on all of that. Information dumped a lot on you guys. Scott Heathman.
Yeah, I love how you kind of attack this from you laid out the intention steps. When I started my book, it was a couple years ago, and I'm not on a timeline. I'm on my timeline. I had about 43,000 words. It was more of an autobiographical, and I got to a point where I started reading it, and I was like, "This is crap. I wouldn't even read this." It was just me trying to, I think, almost therapeutically just write and write. There was a structure of a story, but it just wasn't there. So then I talked to some folks, and we went through some of those intentional steps and just kind of laid out. And then I reread some books that I really have enjoyed over the years. And The Go-Giver was the one that just like always grabs me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's kind of the structure. That's the storyline. And so I started mixing in. I didn't throw those 43,000 words away. I was able to repurpose them in just a little different way and add a couple characters to create a much, I think, better story that I can at least be proud of, that I think somebody will read this. So we're 54,000 words in. I'm editing the last chapter this week. I've got some time to do that. And then now we're going to go back and do the technical transitions. And just like you said, like, make sure the intro and the conclusion are worthy of, getting somebody excited about wanting to continue and turn the page.
Yeah.
So, but I don't have any delusions of grandeur. Just like you said, I'm like, I don't expect this to be on Oprah's reading list. I don't expect to make millions, but what I do want to use it for is, I hope it gives somebody permission. It's about overcoming adversity. And I hope it gives someone permission to just acknowledge and accept what they're going through, and that this book enables them to take it a step further to navigate it. Mm-hmm. So if it helps in that fashion, great. I think I absolutely use it as a speaking tool as well, to get me into some additional speaking. And it's already started. I've already kind of flirted with that, speaking on the framework of the book. So just to kind of test the story out, and it's working. So I'm happy that I adjusted. It took another year and a half, but I'm so thankful I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that. I'm celebrating you for that. 54,000 words is huge. And I'm glad you didn't throw away the first draft, which brings a great point up that I have had to overcome some perfectionist tendencies. I'm sure there are others on the call. Like, your first draft is not going to be perfect. The first step is getting the words on the page and getting it out there, and then figuring out, like, it's an iterative process. And so it's great, Scott, that you were able to leverage that. And Scott brings up another good point too, that, like, if you're not really sure where to start, where you want to go with the structure of your book, read a ton of different types of books. Like, even fiction is valuable in getting storytelling ideas and things like that. But yeah, I think it's great. It's a great demonstration of having your purpose in mind, because a lot of people will actually write memoir style books too, for kind of their own self-discovery purposes and whatnot. And then it sounds like you kind of pivoted so you can use it for giving others permission and speaking and all of that. And I think that's great. And I'm excited to read your book. Let's see. I think I saw Jules.
Hey, Jamie, I should have come to your house. We're close by.
Yeah, I know, right? Drive
What
on
are
up.
we doing? We should be planning a happy hour right after this.
We should.
So I really appreciate the questions that you're posing, and I am stuck pretty much on the first one. So because what I find myself wondering, so there's the growth-minded person who wants to learn emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
But recently it's become very clear that my senior living programs, if I can make one sale in that carries me for a couple of years.
Mhm.
And so but I don't even know if senior living decision makers read books. Like, I really don't even know.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just like I could write a book that I think would inspire all of us outliers to be like, oh my gosh, gotta up my EQ. I think I could do that, but that's wide and broad, right?
It
But
is.
and I do have a product to send people to that they could move toward. But I guess it's like a business decision. So how do you think about that with your first one?
Yeah. I think you got it right. It's a business decision. So you can definitely write a book that's going to support either of those. And so, I'm not a business coach, but I would encourage you to think about, like, what's the direction that you want to head with your business. If you want to continue to double down in that senior living space, then I think that there's ways that, even if you're not sure if the decision makers are book readers, I think that there's ways to get to the people that they interact with as well, right? So think about, like, strategic partnerships of other people that might influence them in being decision makers. Like, do they read books, and what type of book would they read? There's more than one ways to get in front of people. And so I think if that's the direction that you want to go with your business, there's ways that we could figure out of how to make that happen. But if you want to move more into that EQ space and more of the coaching and that program, then I think then that's the direction that maybe you want to go with your book as well. I don't know if that's helpful at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's just underlying that I'm in a quandary.
Well, I think, then maybe I have not tried this before, but maybe you can apply some of these questions to the business too as well, and see how they play out there, because it's two very different books, as
it really is.
You're very aware of. And so I wouldn't even encourage you to try to write one that serves both purposes, because then it will serve neither purpose. And so I think if you're only considering the senior business living book because one client could score you a bunch of income from that, I would argue that maybe that's not the reason that you want to go through the process of writing a book, because you can make a sale without a book. Like, you're awesome. And so if the EQ book fires you up more, which is kind of the vibe that I was getting when you were talking about it,
that's true.
then maybe that's the direction you want to go, but only if you're going to leverage it for other purposes through that, launching your product, speaking about it, whatever the case may be. I would think beyond just sales and to other ways that you're going to use it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bruce, it was great meeting you yesterday.
Yeah, Jamie, here we are, like twice talking within 24 hours, right? Very cool. I enjoyed that. Scott had mentioned earlier about the Go Giver. I used that template for my most recent book project because I thought it was the most interesting business book ever written. I loved these characters, and I was a little disappointed that they weren't actually real people, but they were composites. I guess that's good enough. And boy, that was a challenge for me as a fellow ghostwriter, because being a journalist, dealing with nonfiction, not having a clue as to how to write fiction Oh boy, I like backed myself into a corner on that one. It was tough. I was just like throwing stuff against the wall and hoping that the client would be satisfied, which is a good segue into my question for you. How do you capture the voice of an author, of your clientele? And is there any concern about that they may come back to you and say, well, this doesn't really sound like me, and what are your techniques? And I'll throw it out to the group too, if anyone ever wonders, if they hire a ghostwriter, how are they going to make it sound like me?
Yeah. I'm curious to know yours as well too. I try to pay attention to a few things, like definitely following them on social media, blogs, other things that they've already written to anchor off of is important. I pay attention to things like word choice. You notice when people use the same types of words over and over again, like you don't want to be repetitive in a book, but that's the types of words that you're going to write with, obviously. Sentence structure and cadence of how some people do long, flowery, flowy sentences, and some people are bam, 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 brief and to the point. And then like for the rest of the group in books, it's okay to break grammar rules. Like we're not in grade school anymore, so you can do phrases and things like that sound like you. And I think
one-word sentences.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Artistic license.
Exactly. So if it makes
literary
it sound
license,
more like them, I'll take literary license with it if it sounds more like them, as long as the reader can still follow what's going on. Because the talk that I have with a lot of people is your literary voice is different from your speaking voice. So the way you talk doesn't always translate to the page. So we usually need to find author's literary voice. And so we'll talk more about this process-wise, but I personally give the author the first 20 to 25 pages to review because it gives a variety of different types of writing, stories, teachings. And then they give feedback on the voice and tone and structure, not necessarily content yet, but if we can get aligned on that, then I can feel good about having their voice for the rest of the book. And then they get to review the book again. So we catch things there as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, this is very methodical, not bad for a person with a finance background who fell into writing. But, I guess your approach is very much like from that world that you used to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes perfect sense to me, to try to attack that issue from that standpoint. I know, like with me, on a couple, it being able to use transcription software, or like I had done a couple of projects where I actually had somebody, a real live person, transcribe all the interviews I had done. You could see those patterns emerge.
Yes.
Like you said, do they like long, flowery sentences? Is it more staccato? Are there certain words that keep coming up? And then you develop muscle memory for that, and it just kind of falls into place.
Yeah, exactly. That's a transcription's great for visualizing and identifying patterns. And then as ghostwriters, we get to take those and translate the speaking voice into the literary voice and organize it super well.
Definitely.
So Jamie, I'm curious, as somebody who's going to try to capture my voice, is that going to be easy or hard?
I guess we'll find out. I feel pretty good about I think you're a pretty blunt, direct guy, but you're still kind while you do it. And so, yeah. And you put a lot of writing out into the world. So I think we'll be able to get her done.
Jamie, can I ask a question on that particular question? Because a lot of, I definitely want to write a book, and I see a book in my future. And people I've spoken to are like, oh, you can write your own book. Just sit down and write it. You're so great. You know how to talk, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, I'm not a good writer. And I'm not looking for somebody to say, yes, you are. I just know what my strengths and my weaknesses are. So I guess I'm asking a ghostwriter, should I hire a ghostwriter? But is there other reasons other than I'm not a good writer that you would be picking a ghostwriter and just you should be thinking differently than just, I don't write well, I need somebody to write a book.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the, I mean, I'm biased, right? So I'm a
Sure.
ghostwriter.
That's okay.
But yeah, a lot of the reasons that people choose to hire ghostwriters are they don't have the time. That's a big one because we do the heavy lifting of the writing and all of that. One is some people feel they're not good writers, but a lot of people actually that hire ghostwriters are great writers too. They just don't have the time. Or another part of it is having the expertise to write a book, because writing a blog is very different than writing an entire book. And so it's, instead of going through the process of learning it, you could just engage someone that already knows and gets it. And then another one is accountability. Instead of you having to set aside time and keep yourself accountable, a ghostwriter, one is just doing it for you, or a book coach is helping to keep you accountable and talk you through some of that. Like, writing a book is a journey and it's often cathartic. And there will be times where you're like, is my story worth sharing? Is it not? Is this good? Is it not? And so it's helpful to have someone journeying with you who can be like, this book does need to happen. It's going to be great. It's going to make impact, things like that. So that's some of the other reasons people work with ghostwriters.
That's awesome. I love the last reason. That's really to have somebody like a mirror, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Literally, Rich, I am working with Jamie for every single one of those reasons.
I love it. That's
Every
great.
single one.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've had fun so far. All right. I think, sorry, I'm just clicking through. Oh, let's hear it. Yeah.
And I wrote it down, like, what do you want to double down on? But you used it in a couple of different ways. So that was a huge takeaway for me during that section. I want to just bring it forward.
Yeah, I appreciate you calling that out, because words are important. And yeah, the double downs, and I've even used triple downs at some point, is important, because people also need to hear things like 7 times before they get it. So there's like, it's just staying consistent throughout the book and what your message is going to be and how you want to deliver it to really make sure it lands for people. I'm not advocating certainly for repeating the same thing 7 times, but it's just sharing messages and things in different ways that it can resonate with someone. Ivor.
Hi.
Hi.
Question for you. I mean, I know this is all about physical books, but I'm curious, in this age, you know, as things are becoming more digital and people are consuming information in different ways, have you seen any trends to different formats away from physical books to, you know, digital interactive tools and things like that, as almost like as a business card and as a lead generator as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think books are still valuable in their own traditional right, but of course I'm biased. But there are a ton of different ways to incorporate digital tools into that. So putting QR codes throughout the book is not just great for lead generators, but like, I'm connected with someone who builds quizzes into books. And so she works with you to build an entire quiz, which is a different form of lead generation, but more interactive. And what I've also seen a lot is authors tending towards shorter chapters. I think we live in an age right now where it's hard to keep people's attention. And so I'm seeing people less and less want the standard 8 to 15 chapter business book and more of the short few pages here and there. And so I've had various projects that have asked for that. And so that's not quite digital, but it's a little bit to your point of books are evolving and how they come to be. And so I think audiobooks are a big thing now, and Kindle, and using actually Kindle as a way to do different type of lead generation, because it's not the cost of a physical printed book is a big thing too. But I think it's actually incorporating digital tools throughout the course of the book as a way to keep people interactive.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Have I missed anyone? Okay, Cool. So I'll just then briefly, to Rich's question, there's been some questions around process for ghostwriting too. And this is, like I said, everybody is different. Bruce is on the call too, and he's fantastic. And so my process might look a little different from his, but you'll get the flavor of what it looks like to work with a ghostwriter, hopefully, and decide if that could be a good fit for you or a book coach or something like that. Because ultimately, like, my goal is I want to see as many people bring their book to life as possible to see that impact come to fruition. So let's just kind of high level cover it. And so the first step that I always do with people is what we just went through. I do it one-on-one of setting intentions, because it helps not just them, but it helps me be grounded throughout the process as well. And we can make sure we're aligned. I then move people into the outlining phase. And so this is where we get a little more detailed than the roadmap. We're talking about the topics that you want to cover related to the message that you want to share. And then also, if we can, getting into some of those subtopics related to each topic. And then through that process, I like to ask if there's just any stories top of mind that people want to share related to each topic. Those typically come up organically during the interviews, but if we have like one that we can anchor off of in the outline, kind of gets people talking and the conversation flowing. So then once the outline's ready, that's typically 1 to 2 sessions, depending on how well conceptualized the book is before we start. The outline then informs the interviews. And so before we'd start work together, I'd be like, Rich, tell me about, we're going to talk about chapter 1 in this meeting, and you're going to teach me about XYZ. And so we get on the call and I'm like, hey, great, teach me about this. And then it's a little bit of like the journalism hat like Bruce has of filling in the blanks, asking good questions. And so this is very conversational in nature typically. And so you know your topic really well, but the ghostwriter doesn't always. And so that's actually a good thing, because we can come from the reader's perspective of asking different questions that are second nature to you, but not to someone else. And then a large part of the interviews, I call them interviews, I don't have a better word yet, but it's very like, at least with me, like we keep it casual so it doesn't feel like stuffy, because that's how the conversation gets flowing. But a lot of that is storytelling. No matter what type of book you have, a healthy dose of it should be storytelling. To Leah, to your question too, like that is how you keep readers engaged. People don't want to read a textbook. They want to hear stories, and they get engaged with stories. Stories are a great way to demonstrate your teachings and how they work, how they can be applied, things like that. So anyways, we get to chat about all these fun things in the interview. It's cool. The author gets to talk about things they're passionate about and share stories that they love. I, as the ghostwriter, get to learn. That's like the single biggest perk of being a ghostwriter, is getting paid to learn. And so, yeah, so we take the interviews and then I will listen to them several times and start writing using the interviews. And then, like I kind of talked about, I give people 20 to 25 pages where we get aligned on the voice, the tone, the structure, things like that. And so that way we don't write an entire book and have to redo it. But once we're aligned there, I will take and I will write the rest of the book. Some ghostwriters do write chapter by chapter. I have tried that before, and then we end up stepping on each other's toes the entire time because we're dependent on timelines. And if I need to move things around and they're in the document, and it's a whole thing. So I just give the author a copy of the first draft when it is done. They get about a month plus or minus to review depending on their schedule, but a month gives enough time for thorough review without losing momentum in the process. And when they review that, we're throwing the kitchen sink at feedback. So anything from, I think we need to add a section here, down to word choices, things like that. We get it all there. We sit, we talk about it. And then I work on incorporating that feedback into the next draft, which is then essentially the publisher ready draft. And you might be thinking, Jamie, 2 drafts, that doesn't feel right. When we are thorough in our first review, it does capture everything that you're going to want to change. It's also going to go to an editor after that. And if we keep doing draft after draft, this is a word of caution for any approach you take. You don't want to get stuck in infinite edit syndrome. You might write something and one day think it's great, and the next day think it's not. And then the next day you actually decide the original version was better, because I'm speaking from experience. I have been there. What's most important is that your book makes it out into the world. You want it to be a quality book, which is why we do iterate, but you also want to make sure it gets out there. So once the author has draft 2 or their publisher ready manuscripts, I hand them off to the publisher. I have a huge network of publishers, editors, PR people, marketing people, all of that. So I help get authors connected to the right people for their goals, help facilitate that handoff, make sure that they're ready to go for the next phase, and then celebrate them when they get to launch. So that's a little bit of the high level ghostwriting process. I don't know how familiar everyone on this call is with ghostwriting or not. Is there any questions related to that?
Yeah, I have a question I wanted to ask you. If your book includes interviews, if your book includes client stories, do you do the interview or do we do the interview and give that to you?
It's ultimately flexible. So if you're just sharing client stories, you're welcome to tell me the story. If you want it to be more direct, so I've done direct interviews of other people besides the author before. And oftentimes that's when they're actually sharing their own stories directly. And then it doesn't have to be a game of telephone and less time for the author to have to worry about too. They just connect me. I hop on with the other person, get their story and expertise, and then incorporate that.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Cool. Well, we are at noon. Well, at least my time. I am so grateful to you all for being here today. I loved getting to meet some new faces and talk books, and this was so much fun. And I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend.
Jamie, thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. This
So much fun. I will tell you, I'm having a blast working with Jamie, and it's one of those things that I don't know. I think I'd still be, Kathy and I would quarterly be talking about it, and I think there's so many good reasons to use somebody like Bruce or somebody like Jamie. So this is what they do. I don't know, this just clicked in my head. I have this small painting project and I'm like, I can do that. Would it be as good as somebody else? Maybe not. But a lot of it wouldn't get done in the time frame that it needs to get done. So there's so many reasons, I think, to stuff that is not your core competency. And, the people that have those skills like Bruce and Jamie they're hard to find. We're lucky to have some really good ones as a resource. So this was great. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, guys.
Have a
We'll
great
see you.
weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.